Alright, so welcome to this next lesson where we're going to take a look at a few more features of Adobe Muse. And also we're going to take a look at how Adobe Muse interacts with external applications like Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Edge Animate. So what I want to do is open up Adobe Muse, and as you can see I have my basic project right here that we had in the first section of this tutorial. And what we need to do is take a look at actually adding a few buttons into our header, and then also what I want to do is then obviously start to add content to our actual site pages. So what I'm going to do is go back to my main master page, and I want to actually place in two buttons, one Facebook and one Twitter button. So what I'm going to do is drop down the file menu, and you have a few options available to you right here. You have place and place Photoshop button. So what are these options right here for? Well, place is for pretty much anything you want to place in your website. So whether that be a PSD file, and of course if you do place a PSD file, Adobe Muse knows that the web can't understand PSDs, so it will actually take that image and flatten it into a JPEG and then export it out. So you don't have to worry about compatibility and whatnot. Adobe Muse will take care of that. So you can place PSDs, you can place GIFs, JPEGs, Swift animations, and also you can place Adobe Edge Animate files. So any of those types of files you can just place right in there. But however, I want to create a button from a Photoshop file, so I'm going to say place Photoshop button. Then I'm going to go into my assets directory, and we have this tweet button.psd. So I'm going to click on that. I get a nice little preview. I'm going to say yes, that is the button that I want to place. And so what I'm going to do is now choose the states. So let's go ahead and take a look at this file in Adobe Photoshop. And you'll see I've only provided two states, which is the up state like so and the down state. So what I'm going to do now is just minimize that like so, and as you can see right here we have our states. So you have your normal state, so when there's no interaction with the button, what does it look like? Well, I want it to go to the tweet up layer, so it looks like that. Then when the user hovers over the button with their cursor, what it will do is it will change to this state, the composite state, which basically looks like it is right now in Adobe Photoshop. So we're not targeting any layer in specific terms. What we are doing is actually just targeting the entire file right there. So if I had extra bits and bobs over here, they would also show up as well. Then we have the mouse down state. I'm going to say none to that, and the active state is none. So you don't really actually have to have a rollover state. You could set that to none, but you must have obviously a normal state. Otherwise there'd be absolutely no point in you placing a button there. So you can provide those states if you want to, but I'm just going to keep things nice and simple and just click OK to that. You'll see now that I obviously get this image, and what I can do is place that where I want it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scale down, and by the way, if you hold down Shift you can actually scale down in proportion. But however, if you just scale down like so, it will still scale down properly, but however it's not really that neat when you've got all this extra boundary around there. So just hold down Shift and just keep everything in proportion, and we'll just move this into position. And there we go. So there is my Twitter button. Then I want to place in my Facebook button. So I'm going to select FB button.psd. I'm going to open that up, and then I can choose a different layer. So I'm going to go with FP up for the normal state, and I'm going to get rid of the mouse down state. Click OK. Drop that in like so, and then what we can do is actually click on that button right there, open up the transform panel so I can actually see the width and the height. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do to this button, so we get it dead on accurate. So I'm going to change that to 34 and that one to 34. Okay, so now that I've done that, what I can do is just position that up nicely and obviously position it in the center of that column, and that's why I like working with the columns, because I can easily align things. So as you can see, very easy and very simple. So let's go ahead and preview that now and see how our buttons actually look. So here we go, I hover over it, it goes to that hover state, and the same with the Facebook button. So that's really nice and easy. So go back into design mode, because now I actually want to link these buttons. How do we actually create a link? Well, you'll be able to notice that when we select on this button, we get the hyperlinks option, and you get that option with, again, text. You get that option obviously with containers as well, so you can link an entire container. You could do that with an image and so on and so forth. But however, I'm just going to create a hyperlink for this button. So you can say hyperlinks, you can edit the tooltip text, you can also edit the link styles, and so on and so forth. Here in this drop down right next to the hyperlinks drop down panel, we are actually able to link to a file or link to a file inside of our site, or what we could do is right there where it basically says search and whatnot is actually add a link. So I'm just going to send this to go to twitter.com, and there we go, that button will now go to twitter.com, and then I'll just do the same for the Facebook button. And I'm putting the HTTP in there so that it knows to go to an external website. Alright, so now what we can do is preview this, and I'll just click on the Twitter button, and there we go, it'll take me to the Twitter's homepage. So that's nice and easy and very simple to do linking inside of Adobe Muse. So now what I want to do is go ahead and actually take a look at pinning this header to the top of the browser window. And a good example of basically fixed positioning, so I'm just going to open up a website, Behance.net. That's also integrated with Adobe Cloud, because it's a really good service for getting a lot of inspiration. But you'll be able to see when I scroll down, yeah, some of this does collapse away, but however the main menus and so forth always stay in the view. So what I want to do is the same thing here, and so what I'm going to do is select my main container, and then I'm going to say pin to the very top. I could say top left, I could say top right, or I could say top central. So I'll just say top central for now, even though it stretches 100% of the width. So it doesn't really matter anyway. And what I want to do is just very quickly go out to my main site, and I want to actually open up the home page. And what I'm going to do is grab the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to grab this and push this all the way down, so you can see that this is automatically getting resized in Adobe Muse. So you don't have a set height, you can always keep pushing it down and down and down and down. So what I'm going to do now is go out and just quickly preview this. So now I have this little scroll bar, and you'll be able to see that when I scroll down, you'll see that this container is staying in place. Also, you'll notice that this container that I placed on the home page is actually overlapping the header from the master page. So this is a very big problem, and we need to solve that. Also, we need to solve this text and navigation and these buttons also scrolling off the page. We need to basically keep those in a fixed position as well. So go back into design mode, and what I'll do is I shall go back into the main master page, and I'll select the text, and I shall also select the navigation, and I'll also select the buttons as well. And what I can do right there is I can obviously set the pinning for all of those objects that I have, but what I could do is group things together. So then that makes it easier for me to pin and unpin all of those objects instead of having to select them one by one by one again. So all I have to do is press Command and G on the Mac, or obviously Control G on Windows, and that will group them together. And to ungroup them, you could press Command Shift and G or Control Shift and G on Windows, and that will ungroup it. So I'm going to press Command G again to group. And if you go to your Layers palette and open up that header layer, you'll be able to see now that you have your group right there and all of the objects inside of that group. And if you want to very quickly go inside the group and edit something, you can always do that by grabbing your selection tool, double clicking, and then you can still go into the group and edit whatever you need to edit. And then when you come back out again, you have the group, and when you select on one of those objects in the group, it will move the entire group. So now what I can do is just pin all of those objects that are in my group to the top. So that will fix the problem of those objects just scooting off the top of the page. Now the next problem that we need to take a look at is obviously the overlapping problem, where the content on the page actually overlaps the header. So what I need to do is add a new layer, and I'm going to do this in the master page, so then I don't have to keep adding new layers for every page that I create. So I'm going to create a new layer, double click on it, call it content, and then click OK. Then I'm going to drag the content layer below the header and the footer layer. And then what I'm going to do is lock the header and lock the footer layer. And so now when I go over to my home page, you'll be able to see I can't select my rectangle. You're probably going, well, what's going off there? I can see the content layer, but actually what it's done is it's basically put that rectangle object into the header layer. And I can't see obviously the objects that are on the main master page's header layer. So I can't order this, I can't set this to go below. So what I need to do is quickly unlock the header layer, drag and drop that into the content layer, and then lock the header again. And the reason why in the main master page I've locked those two layers is because what it will do is it will say, okay, the header layer is locked, the footer layer is locked, the content layer is free. So it will automatically put the contents of the page into that layer. So now if I was to, for example, go to the about page and let's say put in a rectangle, you'll be able to see that it automatically puts it into the content layer. And because the content layer is below the header layer, that will stop the overlapping problem. So if you hit preview now and we scroll downwards, you'll be able to see that my header stays intact, and if we keep scrolling, you'll be able to see that the contents of the page does not overlap the header. So let's go back into design mode, and I just very quickly want to select that and delete it. Okay, so the next thing that we want to actually take a look at is obviously putting some content into the home page. And what I want to actually do is integrate Adobe Edge Animate to actually place an animation on my home page. So I'm going to close the master page now because we're finished with that. And I'm just going to move this about a little bit. And so I just want to put a little animation right here. Alright. So let me go ahead and open up Adobe Edge Animate. So Adobe Edge Animate allows you to create HTML5 animations. So as you can see here, we just have a very basic animation with a bit of welcome text and the leaf fading in. So what I'm going to do is first of all go to File and make sure you've saved this project. And then what you need to do is go to Publish Settings. Then what I'm going to do is untick the web box, and I'm actually going to tick the box for Animate Deployment Package, and that's going to create an OAM file, and that file can be placed inside of our Adobe Muse project. Then we can select a target directory to export the OAM file to. So what I can do is click that folder icon, and I've targeted my assets directory inside of my Envato Muse project folder. So I'm going to choose that. You can give this a name, so the name of this is home_anim, and then also you can define a poster image. So if the user has an old browser that doesn't have the capability to play this animation, then you can just have a flat poster image. So I'm just going to go ahead and save those publish settings, and then I'm going to go back to the file menu and hit publish. Now if this publish option right here is grayed out, then you've probably forgotten to actually save the project. So make sure you saved it first, then we can hit publish, and then when we actually go to our projects folder and then into assets, you'll be able to see we have this OAM file ready to place inside of our Adobe Muse project. So what I'm going to do is hit file and then place. And what I'm going to do is then select the OAM file right here, this animation file, and hit open. And you'll be able to see I get a nice little preview of the animation, and I can just simply stick this in. Now even though the background color right here is a different background color, it's actually transparent, but however you can't see that at the moment. But when we actually export this out and preview it in the browser, so we'll just go to preview, you'll be able to see that what we can do is take a look at our little animation right here. So that is a really nice feature of Adobe Muse. Now sometimes I do have to warn you, the animation doesn't look quite right in the preview mode in Adobe Muse. So however, when you actually export this out properly, it does look okay when you're in your actual default browser. So just take a note of that. But however, I'm going to go back into design mode. Okay, so now that I've placed that animation in there, I'm going to save that for the home page, and then I'm going to simply close that out. So the next thing that I want to do is open up the About page and add quite a bit of content in here. Now the only problem is the fact that we've got this gigantic background image in here, and what I want to do is actually get rid of that altogether on this About page and also on the Contact page as well. So what I'm going to do is actually go back out, open up my main master, and what I'm going to do is simply say to the background image, get rid of it. Okay, then I'm going to close that out. Then I'm going to go to the home page, and I do want the background image on there, so I'm going to open up browser fill, select the image, which is going to be Envato main, open that up and say scale to fill, and that's looking really nice. Okay, so now that I've actually applied that background image just to the home page, let's go ahead and start adding content to the About page. So what I'm going to do is take a look at actually placing a PSD file. So let's hit File, Place. So even though it's a PSD file, I don't want to create a button with rollover states and so on and so forth. I just want to place a flat image. So I'm going to hit place, and obviously I could choose a JPEG or something like that, but I'm going to choose team.psd. So basically this is just a photo of the Envato team, and I'm going to open that up. So what we can do is we can import a specific layer. So you have layer 1 and then you have the background layer, or you could import the composite image, which is obviously just the file itself that's untouched. So I'm just going to say import a specific layer, layer 1, and I'm going to say clip to layers contents. That's absolutely fine, and click OK. Now I can place this PSD file right inside of Adobe Muse. Now obviously PSD files don't work on the web. It simply doesn't know how to work with PSD files. So what Adobe Muse will do is obviously allow you to quickly go out to Photoshop, make edits and so on and so forth, but when you actually export the website, it will actually flatten this out as a JPEG and put that into the website. So you don't have to worry about that. Adobe Muse will take care of everything. So what I can do is now obviously shrink this down a little bit. So I'm going to hold down the command key, obviously that's Control on Windows, and press the minus button so we can zoom out a little bit here. And then what I want to do is hold down Alt and just simply scale that in proportion. Also, if things become a little bit difficult to see, so for example these columns really aren't clear, what I can do is right click on one of the guides right there. I can choose to hide the rulers, which is these right here. I can hide the guides. I can lock the guides so we can't move them around. we can hide the header and the footer, which is kind of nice when you're just trying to focus on the content. And you can also show grid overlay, so that basically colors in those grids so we can clearly see our columns right there for our positioning. And so what I can do is drag and drop that in. I don't want that all the way up the top, so I'll just move that down some. If you hold down the shift key, you can actually move stuff in 10 pixel increments. And I'm just going to, again, hold down Alt so I keep the aspect ratio of the image, and we'll scale that down. Alright, so now that I've placed this image actually into my Adobe Muse project, what I can do is right click on the image, and then what I can do is I can edit the original image, and I can also edit the image properties as well. So for example, you can have a tooltip on there, so I can say Envato Team. And then what I can do is I can provide some alternative text, which again is good for SEO purposes. So I'm just going to click OK to that for now. And then what I want to do is again right click on there and say edit original, and what will happen is it will open that file up inside of Adobe Photoshop. I can make edits and then save it. Now just note, I selected only to display layer 1, not the composite. So the composite is all the layers, everything. So if you want to constantly keep adding things and changing layers, and you know you got a whole host of layers and so forth and so on, then you're not really going to want to select a specific layer. What you're going to want to do is obviously select the composite, which is all the layers inside of the Adobe Photoshop file. So bear that in mind. So if I actually add a new layer, make a change, save it, it actually won't show up in Adobe Muse because I only selected layer 1. But however, if I make changes just to layer 1, it will show up. So for example, I could change the coloring and so forth and so on. So it's really nice and easy, and all I've got to do is make those edits and then just save the file, and that's really all I have to do. So that's a really nice feature of Adobe Muse. So the next thing that we want to take a look at is actually adding a bit of text in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my text tool, then we're going to drag out. Okay. So then what I want to do is add in a bit of text. So I'm just going to open up Safari, and right here you'll be able to see I have some lorem ipsum, that wonderful filler text, and I'll copy that out and I shall paste that in right there. And I'll just knock these panels off to the side just for a second. Right, so now what I want to do is use some guides to help me position this text object correctly. So I'm just going to drag from the ruler a guide, like so, and I'm going to snap it to the top of the image, and then I'm also going to snap it to the bottom of the image as well. And then I'm going to click on this, and I'm just going to move this up to the correct position, make this the correct height, perhaps maybe add a little bit more text in there, so I'll double that up. And then what I want to do is actually style this text. So what I'm going to do is, obviously I like Arial, so I'll leave that like so. What I want to also do is change the text size a little bit, so perhaps have it a little bit bigger. 15 looks kind of nice. And then what I shall do is just delete a little bit of text off there. And then what we can do is change the color, so I can make this like a very nice dark chocolate color. Looks a little better. And finally what I want to do is, where you have this text link right here, we can expand that to get some more options. So here we have a lot of leading options right here. So for example, I can increase the character spacing. I could also do a lot of other stuff as well. So let me just change that back to 1. Let's see how that looks. No, get rid of that. I want to change the line height though, so let's just push that down a little bit so it fits nicely within that area. And again, you have so many options available to you right here. So you have indentation and so forth and so on, which we'll actually take a look at the indentation when we're actually working with the mobile site. So again, don't forget, whenever you see those blue links in the menu bar right here, expand it, take a look at those options, and you'll be surprised how many options there really are. So now what I want to do is take that paragraph style and save it, so that then if I create a new paragraph, I can apply those same styles. So you can open up your panels right here, go to paragraph styles, and obviously right here we have this button that says create a new style from the attributes applied, which obviously I've got this text object selected. I'm going to say add new, and there is my paragraph style, and I can double click, I can rename it, and as you can see, I can see the style settings down here as well, so I know that I've got the right style selected. And I can make that a paragraph, default P, it could be a header 1 all the way to a header 6, and I'm just going to rename this to main paragraph. Click OK to that, and there it is. There is my style. And so now when I click on this text object, you'll be able to see that when I grab the text tool by pressing T on the keyboard and selecting my text object, you'll be able to see that this paragraph style has been applied. So now what I want to do is actually take a look at placing some content from an external website such as YouTube or Vimeo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my selection tool, and then I'm going to go out to Safari, and I want to share this sort of animated podcast that we have from Envato. So I'm going to hit share, and right there you'll be able to see that we have the embed code for the actual video. So I'm going to copy that out, and now I need to insert that HTML into my page. So drop the object menu down, and then what you want to do is select insert HTML and paste your HTML code in there. And I just want to get rid of this bottom paragraph with these links in. I don't want that. And then I'm just going to click OK for now. And then where it says insert your HTML, if you give it a couple of seconds, you'll be able to see that we get a nice little preview of this iframe. So now let's say, okay, whoa, that's a little bit too big. I want this to line up essentially with that image. So how do I do that? Well, first of all, we need to know the size of the image. So if I click on the image, go to transform, I can see that the width is 390 pixels. So what I'm going to do is click on that HTML section right there. I can easily see that it's HTML because when I hover over it, you'll be able to see we have those little angle brackets right there over to the top left. Then I can right click on it and say edit HTML. And then I can simply go back and make changes to the HTML. So I've already played around with these options, but 390 is the width, and then we have 230 as the height, and click OK to that. Then if I just click on it again, you'll see that it updates and refreshes. Now this green outline is basically the boundary area, so really it won't cause any problems, but what I want to do is make sure that the content is actually surrounded by that boundary. And you'll see the footer again has automatically been pushed downwards so that we can put our content in here. And I just want to grab my text tool again, and I want to drag out a text object. This one's going to be slightly different though, because this one's going to say podcast, and I want to use my fancy font. I want to make it bold, and I'll make it italics. I also want to make the color perhaps white and just increase the size of that. So let's increase this, and let's just give this a quick preview. And there we go, we've got that right there. So that basically, I want to make it a title. So let's go back into design mode, grab my selection tool, and again use my guides, drop that in like so. So now what I want to do is actually make this a paragraph style, but I want to change it to be actually a header 1 element rather than a paragraph element. So let's add a new paragraph style. Make sure you've got your text object selected, and there we can see it's added this paragraph style right here. Again, I want to rename this. I'm going to rename this to title style, and I'm going to change it from a default paragraph to a headline or a header 1 tag. And there I can see all the style settings. I'm happy with that. Click OK. And so now I could just click on that paragraph style, I get that style, and so on and so forth. So you can alternate and change styles so easily at the click of a button. Also, these text objects are too close, so I'm going to move them over 10 pixels. And then what I'm going to do is just move this out of the way and just shrink this in so it fits. Let's delete this out. And also what I want to do is take out a couple more lines, so that what we can do is just move that up a little bit, copy and paste. I'll move this down and just pop this up the top here. And as you can see, it keeps everything nice and in line, which is really good. Then we've got a little podcast. So I'm just going to copy and paste that now. Scroll down a little bit and then slide that in there. That's pretty cool. Again, you might want to use a bit more of your guides there to get the spacing correct, but overall we're looking pretty good. So now what I want to do is actually embed a YouTube video, and there's a little trick to actually embedding YouTube videos properly, because if you just do it the normal way, it'll crash Muse and that'll cause you a big headache. So what I'm going to do is go off to Safari, and then I'm going to go to this YouTube video. So I'm going to hit share, then I'm going to hit embed, and right there you'll be able to see it's giving me the iframe code again, and I'm going to set the video size to a custom size. So the video's width wants to be 390 pixels and it'll do the height for me. Now this is the little gotcha right there. You need to make sure that enable privacy enhanced mode is ticked, because if it isn't ticked and you just embed that code, it will crash Adobe Muse. So make sure you've got that option ticked. Copy that code out, and then again go to the object menu, insert HTML, and paste your HTML code in. And there we go, and just if you give it a couple of seconds it will come up with that preview, and then we can slide that in. I'm just going to make that touch the other video and then move it down 20 pixels, and then I want to copy and paste and put that in there like so. And again, I could use my guides right here to help me position this up a little bit more neater. And there we go. This text right here, I'll just take off a few lines. Alright, so now what we need to do is actually have a little bit of padding on the bottom here. So what I want to do is go back out to my main project, go to main master, and then what you might want to do is actually push this up a little bit so that you can get a bit of padding on there automatically. So what I'm going to do is draw out a rectangle. This isn't very precise, but it's an easy way of doing it. Go to transform. I'm going to make the height 20, and then I'm just going to push this down here and just get that guide to fit on top. That'll do. Okay, so now that I've done that, I can go back out again, and as you can see, it's automatically put that on there, so that's done a really nice job. And what I can do is cross, just to make sure that everything fits nicely. So now that I've done that, let's go ahead and preview this and make sure that we're happy with what we've got. So we've got these warnings about the text, again being bold and italic, and the fact that it's not meant to, but however the browser will take care of it. And as you can see, we've got something that looks really nice, quick and clean. I have my videos, and my videos are being loaded from an external service, which is good. I have to actually host the video file, so I'm not actually taxing my server more by hosting the files. And also, if they view this on the desktop, it will show the flash version. If it's viewed on a mobile device, again, YouTube and Vimeo and whatnot, they encode the video to make it work on smartphone and tablet devices as well that are not flash capable. So the service provider takes care of all of that for me. I just have to embed the code in there, which is a really nice feature of Adobe Muse. You'll notice the text isn't quite right. Again, there is that problem with the text rendering in design mode to preview mode, so you might want to push your text down a little bit more and perhaps maybe increase the line height. But overall, this looks really nice, and so what we can do is now move on and take a look at adding content to the contact page. Okay, so let's open up the contact page, and then what I want to do is actually embed Google Maps into this page. So I don't want this just to be a basic flat image. So let's go ahead and open up Safari again, and I'm just going to go to Google Maps and type in Envato, and there we go. So now that I've got my location selected, I'm going to click on the Embed button, and here you'll be able to see that I can grab the iframe code, but I want to customize it. So I want to choose a custom width, and obviously I played around with this, but it's going to be 710 by 145. So now that I've done that, what I can do is simply copy all of that code that has been generated, close that out, minimize that, go to the object menu and click Insert HTML and paste. And then right here you'll be able to see the iframe ends right there, so I'm just going to get rid of all the other little bits of text that come with it. And then you'll see that eventually what it will do is actually show you your HTML, which is really, really cool. And then I'm just going to scooch this down a little bit and change the size. Next, what I want to do is actually place an image in here. So what I'm going to do is hit File, Place, and then I'm going to go to the Assets directory and select this image right here. Click Open, and then just paste that in. And then what I'm going to do is zoom out, hold down the Alt key, and then that will allow me to scale this down to the correct aspect ratio. And I'm just going to move this across 10 pixels again. Ideally I should have made the guttering 20 pixels, but as I said, you know, you can always go to your site properties and change those settings later on anyway, but I'll leave it like this for now. And the images work a lot like Adobe InDesign, where you can import it and pretty much already has a mask on it. So what I can do is simply grab the crop tool, and then I can just crop this now to the right height, and then just sort of zoom in a little bit, drag out a guide, set that right there. Sometimes the iframe is a little bit bigger, but however that's looking pretty cool. And then what I can do is double click to go inside of there, and you'll notice now I get this red outline, and the red outline symbolizes me moving the image effectively in the mask. So that is looking pretty smart. Alright, so we've got this so far, and again you could quickly preview this, nice and easy. So the next thing I want to do is add in a contact form, and then also what I want to do is add in a bit of paragraph text and also create a simple link. So what I'm going to do is go back to design mode. Again, I could select on this image and I could turn it into a hyperlink, and I'll just tell it to go to the home page, for example. And so now that image is a link. So go back to preview. Now you'll see when I hover over it and click on it, it'll take me to the home page. Nice and easy. Alright, so let's go back into design mode now and take a look at actually adding a widget. So with my menus right here, what I'm going to do is open up my widgets library, and then I'm going to go to forms, and then we've got a detailed contact form. I don't want all that many fields in there, but you know, if you want something really complicated, go for that option. But I just want something really nice and simple, just a name, email, and so on and so forth. So drag and drop that in. And by the way, all these widgets are touch enabled and they work on mobile devices just as well as desktop devices. So now what we can do is go ahead and change the styling of that. So let me put this in the right position, like so. Double click to go inside of there, and I want to change that text. So grab the text tool, and then it gives me the option to change the text. So let's go ahead and make this Arial. This text right here I don't really like, so I'm not going to make it italic, and I'm just going to make it Arial. And as I said, once you make a change to one of those objects, it changes all of those objects' styles. And again, you can play around with things, you can move things around. So for example, let's say the submit button, I want that to be on the right hand side. No problem, just click on it, drag it, and just put it in like so. Really nice and easy. And what I want to do is open up the options right here, and as you can see, you can have single line text, you can have multi-line, you can edit all together, you can have BC capture. That'll help actually with spam and stuff like that. And again, you have all these extra fields. You can also say just stay on the current page after sending, so it's like an AJAX send and so forth. And if you select a certain object inside of that widget, you can actually get the specifics of that widget, so whether that field is required, whether to show a prompt when that text object is empty, so it needs to be filled in. And also you can have some message text as well, so saying, you know, this is required and so forth. And your label is basically the label for that field. So again, keep playing around with it, always take a look at all those options and select all the different objects that are inside the widget and take a look at changing as many options as you want, and that way you'll learn all the little tips and tricks. So the next thing that I want to do is create a text object. Let's draw that out and drop that to the bottom. Then I'm going to open up Safari again, get some lorem ipsum, and just paste that in. Now obviously it's not got that style on that we had previously, so open up your paragraph styles, and I'm going to select main paragraph, and there is my styles back again. So pretty much just like Adobe InDesign. So that's looking pretty cool. So now what I want to do very quickly is just make that right there a link. So I'm going to select the text that I want to make a link, and then again, all I've got to do is go to the hyperlinks field. I can either type in right there where I want it to go. So if I want to go to external address like facebook.com, I'll just type that in. If I want it to go to a page, it gives me all the pages there for different versions of the site. So you have desktop at the moment, but however, you could have tablet and phone as well, and vice versa. Or you could link to a file specifically, such as a PDF file or an image. So I'm just going to say go to the home page, and that way I've just made that little bit of text a link. So easy and simple. And what I'm going to do is scooch this right up next to this right here and just move it across too, so we get the spacing right. Okay, so now that I've done that, let's go ahead and preview this. So we've now made this image a link, we've embedded Google Maps, we've embedded a very quick widget here, which is our contact form. We've obviously used our paragraph styles throughout the entire site, and also we've made a little bit of text a link as well. So it's so easy in Adobe Muse to make something a link. And we have these buttons up here, again, those are links, and they're going to an external source rather than internal. And so if I click that, it'll just take me straight to the home page. We've had a little animation there. And with this image that we cropped, Adobe Muse will actually export out just that area and then just put that into the website for us, so we don't have to worry about anything. We can just focus on the design. Now if you want to change the link styles, no problem. You can either change the default styles by going to File, Site Properties, and then you have Content, and right there you'll be able to see that is basically the link color. So you have the normal link color, so we'll make that sort of a white. Then you have the hover, so we'll make that a very dark color. Visited, we'll sort of make that an orangey color, and then active, we'll just make that pretty much the same as it is now, dark red or light orange, something like that, and that fits nice with the color scheme. And so it's really easy and really simple. And again, you have tick boxes right there, so you can have it underlined. So I'm going to say no, I don't want it underlined. You may want to have it italics and so on and so forth, but I don't really want any of that. And also you can add new link styles. So at the moment I've only got the default link style, and I could add another link style. So what I'm going to do then is just double click on that to change its name. So we'll set this to different links, something like that, and then I'll make the normal state orange. That's the only difference. So I'm going to click OK to that. So obviously at the moment this text object is just using the default style, but if I grab the text tool by pressing T on my keyboard, and then obviously I've got that text object selected, open up the text options, and right there you have the drop down to select the different types of styled links. So at the moment I only have the default link style. Right there, what I want to do is select different links, and you'll see that it just changed the normal state right there. Really nice and really easy. And then I can quickly preview the changes inside of Adobe Muse. So I'm just going to leave it on default for now. So that is how to obviously create link styles, create paragraph styles, use those to your advantage, because that way it'll keep the consistency throughout your website. And there's just so much to Adobe Muse that we've literally just brushed the surface of the capabilities of this program. So it really is a very, very cool tool. So in the next tutorial, what we're going to do is actually take a look at building a mobile website and take a look at how we can sort of make everything fit and squash in and place things in correctly. Alright, so thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial.